market growth is external factors we have to look at. And relative market share means considering two things. One is considering the competitor's position, and the other is our strengths and weaknesses, or our core competencies. So later on, I will have a class talking about industry analysis and competitor analysis and core competency analysis. The market growth is related to industry analysis because this is something external which we cannot control over, and the relative market share is related to competitors analysis and also core competency analysis. So everything is related. In my process of developing business strategy, as I said, we have to analyze external and internal factors such as industry analysis, competitor analysis, customer analysis, and core competency analysis. Strategic alternatives under the BCG matrix. One big X is industry analysis, right? And the other important analysis is that about competitors and core competencies. So everything is quite related. Using BCG matrix, let's decide which business to focus on while allocating the existing resources properly. So if I consider rebalancing business portfolios, under my existing business portfolio, I may have 4 different business sectors to consider the investment. Okay, this is a simple example in travel, shipbuilding, automobile, construction. Those 4 industries are the candidate for my investment. Or I may have invested already in each of those 4 different business sectors. And as time goes by, it's time for me to rebalance, to review my investment, and then I try to readjust my investment portion to each of those 4 business sectors. First thing I may analyze is the market attractiveness, right? And then second thing I have to analyze is my competitive position within the industry, or my subsidiary company's position within the industries. So let's say I have 4 subsidiaries in each of those business sectors, and I'm the owner of the conglomerate. So I have subsidiary in each of those 4 different businesses, and even though I'm the owner of the conglomerate, my resources are limited. My resources is money to invest. So I want to rebalance my portfolio, and using the BCG matrix, there are 2 criteria to analyze One is market attractiveness, the other is competitive position within the industry, right? Like this one. One is market growth and the other is relative position, relative market share in that industry. So based on my analysis, if travel industry and shipbuilding industry's market is attractive, and based on the analysis, if I decide the automobile, if I find that the automobile industry and construction industry are not attractive, and then I categorize my subsidiaries businesses into those two different boxes, and then I will conduct another analysis about competitors' position, competitive position within the industry. If my position in that industry is, if my position in the attractive market is strong, and if I see that travel is one of the industries where I have a strong position in the attractive market, and I simply put the travel industry in the strong position box. And then shipbuilding industry might be analyzed as I'm taking the weak position even though in the attractive market. And if I take a strong position in the automobile industries, but unfortunately the automobile industry is not attractive anymore, and I simply put it in the third box on my right hand side. And then finally, based on my analysis, construction industry is very attractive market, but my position in that market is assessed to be very weak. And then based on the analysis of market attractiveness and competitive position within the industry, I may conclude that resource allocation would be like that. I may increase my investment or the capital injections in the travel industry. And in the shipbuilding industry, I may dramatically increase my resource allocations to take a leadership position in the attractive shipbuilding industry. But I may simply maintain the investment at the current level in the automobile industry, even though I take a strong position in the automobile industry because the market is not attractive anymore. But I may decrease my investment in the construction industry because the market is not attractive, and also I do not take a leadership position in construction industries. So without the proper analysis of whether market is attractive or not, and also at the same time our competitive position within the industry, it's very hard for us to decide which businesses to invest. You may recall the slide of the example of the rebalancing business portfolios. If you are the intuitive thinker, you can simply answer out of those 4 candidates for investment. If you have a good experience of investing in travel, you can simply say, okay, travel is the best option to invest more based on my experiences. Or some other executives who recently read an the analyst report about shipbuilding industry, that shipbuilding industry's future is so bright, and then that executive may argue that we have to increase our investment in shipbuilding because recently I read a very persuasive analyst report that shipbuilding industry is very good. So those arguments are based on the intuitive thinking. If you are a strategic thinker, you'd rather not answer instantly whether you will increase or decrease your investment in each of those 4 boxes. Instead, you do the decision-making criteria first. So in this case, decision-making criteria is market attractiveness and competitive position within the industry. And under those criteria, you may conduct thorough analysis. That means you collect a lot of data, a lot of objective data or the evidences first before making the judgment. And then based on the objective data, and then you decide whether those markets are attractive and whether you are taking a leadership position or not. And then you make a decision and you do an answer to the question or the problem of whether we will invest more or not in each of those 4 business sectors. So BCG matrix is quite useful. So BCG matrix is quite useful in listing a lot of strategic options to review. So this is the almost the end of today's presentation. Let me summarize today's presentation very quickly. Okay. I covered the second step of 5-step process for building business strategy. So that is, after identifying the gap, it's the step to list strategic alternatives. And in order for you to listing of strategic alternatives, issue tree analysis and using the BC concept are really quite powerful to list up the strategic alternatives. And BCG matrix is one of the tools to list up strategic alternatives. They specifically used 2 distinct decision-making criteria. One is external factor of the market growth, and the other is mixture of external and internal factor, that is relative market position in that industries. So using the BCG matrix, we can get a strategic implication for each business sector, whether we will increase or decrease our resource allocations. So we apply this BCG matrix concept in listing up 4 different strategic alternatives for the resource allocations. And finally, I revisit the case of the rebalancing the business portfolios to decide whether each one of the 4 different business sectors is attractive, or we have to allocate our resources more or not. Okay, thank you very much for listening today's class. And starting from next class, I want to cover each one of a lot of different analysis steps. So from next session, I'll move to the analysis of external and internal factors. So starting from the industry analysis, I want to cover each one of those 4 different analyses. Okay, thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.